You open your eyes in the middle of the night. No alarm went off. No phone buzzed against the nightstand. The fire near you has burned down to embers, and somewhere in the dark, that matters more than any clock ever could. You sit up. You feed a few sticks into the coals. You watch the flame catch and settle. Then, without panic, without checking a time that doesn't exist, you lie back down and drift off again. For most of human history, this wasn't a disorder. This was just Tuesday night. For roughly 300,000 years, sleep didn't look anything like the tidy 8-hour block you've been told you're failing to get. It looked broken, interrupted, split into pieces by fire, by cold, by crying infants, by the low rustle of something moving just past the light. And here's the strange part. The people living that broken sleep barely complained about it. Today, close to a third of adults say they regularly wake in the night and struggle to fall back asleep. They call it a problem. Some take pills for it. Many lie there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, quietly panicking about the 8 hours they're supposed to be getting. So, what changed? Did ancient humans actually sleep better than you do? Or did they just sleep differently and somehow feel fine about it? In 2015, a neuroscientist named Jerome Siegel, working at UCLA, set out to answer a version of that question directly. He didn't ask people to remember their sleep from memory, the way most surveys do. He strapped sleep-tracking devices onto the wrists of people from 3 hunter-gatherer and forager societies who still live largely outside industrial schedules. The Hadza of Tanzania, the San of the Kalahari Desert in Namibia, and the Tsimane of the Bolivian Amazon. What he found broke the popular myth almost immediately. These groups weren't sleeping 9 or 10 peaceful hours a night, the way modern wellness culture likes to imagine natural sleep. They were sleeping closer to 6 to 7 hours. That's less than what most doctors recommend for you. They didn't go to sleep at sunset, either. On average, they stayed awake for several hours after dark, sitting by the fire, talking, finishing small tasks, easing slowly into rest long after the sky had gone black. So if it wasn't darkness pulling them towards sleep, what was? Temperature. As the night air cooled, they drifted off. As it warmed again near dawn, they woke. Their bodies were tracking the drop and rise in temperature the same automatic way your body tracks a buzzing phone on the nightstand. Their sleep even shifted with the seasons. On longer winter nights, they slept a little more. On short summer nights, they slept a little less. Nobody was enforcing a schedule. The night itself was the schedule. And almost none of them reported insomnia. Despite sleeping less than you, despite no blackout curtains, no white noise machines, no melatonin. That's the hormone your brain releases to signal it's time to wind down. They almost never described their sleep as broken or bad. How is that possible? Less sleep, less comfort, and almost no complaints about any of it? Part of the answer comes from a different direction entirely. Written history. A historian named A. Roger Ekirch spent years combing through old court depositions, diaries, and medical texts from pre-industrial Europe, hunting for casual references to nighttime. What he found, again and again, was a pattern he called segmented sleep. 2 distinct sleep periods in a single night, separated by a stretch of quiet wakefulness in between. People of that era didn't treat that gap as a problem. They had names for it. They called the 2 halves their first sleep and second sleep. In the waking stretch between them, they prayed, had quiet conversations, had sex, tended a dying fire, or simply lay in the dark thinking before drifting off again until morning light. Nobody was diagnosing that middle-of-the-night waking as insomnia. It was just how a night was built. This pattern didn't survive the spread of artificial light. As streetlights, gas lamps, and eventually electric bulbs pushed the darkness further and further back through the 1800s, the long segmented night collapsed into the single, solid block you're now expected to produce on command. The 2 sleeps merged into one, not because human biology suddenly changed, but because the environment wrapped around it did. A third piece of this puzzle comes from anthropologist Carol Worthman, who has spent decades studying how non-industrial societies actually sleep, rather than how outsiders imagine they sleep. Her cross-cultural research, conducted across communities in Africa and South America, found sleep that was frequently fragmented by design. People slept in shared spaces near an open fire, waking repeatedly through the night to feed the flames, soothe a crying infant, or simply check the darkness for danger. In many of these communities, sleep wasn't a sealed, private event happening behind a locked bedroom door. It was a shared, semi-public state. Several bodies breathing in the same space, half aware of one another, even while unconscious. So picture a single night, fully reconstructed. The sun went down hours ago. A small group sits around a fire that's been kept burning since dusk, not just for warmth, but because in true darkness, that flame is also protection, light, and reassurance against whatever might be moving beyond its edge. One person stays a little more alert than the rest, half listening, half dozing, ready to add fuel before the coals die completely. Children are curled directly against adults, not tucked away in separate rooms, but pressed into shared warmth. Someone stirs and wakes briefly when the air turns cold. They check the fire, trade a few quiet words with whoever else is awake, and lie back down. There is no anxiety about hitting a target number of hours. There is no glowing screen reporting that last night's sleep was 62% efficient. There is only the fire, the cold, the dark, and bodies simply responding to all three. And here's the twist that flips almost everything you assumed walking into this video. Ancient sleep wasn't more abundant or more peaceful than yours. It was shorter, more interrupted, and far less private. What it wasn't was something people fought against. Modern sleep researchers actually have a word for the thing many people do instead. It's called orthosomnia, an unhealthy obsession with achieving perfect sleep, often fueled by tracking apps that turn an ordinary nighttime waking into a red flag on a screen. The term was coined in 2017 by clinical sleep physician Kelly Barron, after she noticed patients arriving at her clinic more anxious about their sleep data than about how rested they actually felt. Think about that for a second. Somewhere along the way, sleep stopped being a thing your body simply does and became a performance metric you can fail at. Your ancestors never carried that pressure. Waking at 2 in the morning wasn't evidence that something was broken. It was just the second half of the night, the same as it had always been. Compare that to your own bedroom. A locked door, a single body, or two, isolated from any fire, any group, any sense of shared watch. A phone glowing on the nightstand, ready to tell you exactly how badly you slept the moment you open your eyes. An app quietly grading a process your great-great-grandparents never thought to measure at all. You weren't built for that kind of isolated, graded, all-or-nothing sleep. Nobody was. For most of the time humans have existed, a body waking in the dark wasn't malfunctioning. It was simply doing its job, checking the fire, checking the cold, checking for danger, then settling back down until the temperature turned again toward morning. So the next time you wake up at 2 a.m. and your mind immediately jumps to, "I'm not sleeping enough," try telling yourself a different story. You're not malfunctioning. You might be running a far older program than the one modern life keeps grading you against. A program built for fires that needed tending, for temperatures that needed tracking, for a world where 8 unbroken hours behind a locked door was never actually the plan. You open your eyes in the middle of the night. This time, you don't reach for your phone to check the time, and you don't spiral into counting the hours you've lost. You just lie there for a moment, in the dark, doing exactly what bodies like yours have done for roughly 300,000 years.